possible. The whole point of it is that it is totally possible. You can have whatever you want. You just have to find your North Star, forget about the how. If someone ever told me that I would be leading initiatives at the national level one day, considering where I started and how I started, I would have taken the bet against myself. Like, things were so I really wouldn't have. I would have never believed them.
Hi, I'm Kyle Werkerly, certified professional ghostwriter. I'm glad you're listening as I welcome industry experts to share stories of lessons learned the hard way, overcoming professional hurdles, turning experience into actionable knowledge, and how to connect with your target audience. This is the Career Challenges Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Career Challenges Podcast, and my guest is Savi Barrowes. She is the founder and host of the podcast Dream Big and Live Free, which is listened to in 23 countries. She interviews executives, entrepreneurs, athletes, and disruptors about the life challenges that they've experienced and how they've overcome them to go on and build their careers and live their dreams. Savi's on a mission to empower 1 million women to level up in their career and life by teaching them proven tools and techniques on how to grow in their careers. Connect with Savi on LinkedIn and Instagram at Savi Barrowes to learn more about her next workshop, 5 Steps to Level Up Your Career, and subscribe to her podcast. So Savi, thank you for being on the Career Challenges Podcast with me today.
Kyle, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yes. So let's, kind of start, not in the beginning, obviously, because, when you're born, we're not going to start there. But I guess, when was that moment for you when you decided, okay, I've got a lot of knowledge here and I think it can help other people? When was that moment for you and what was that like?
So let me just clarify. So are you meaning the knowledge that I have that I'm helping women with today?
Yes.
Or kind of my story? Oh, the knowledge that I have that I'm helping women with today. So I would say that it's really been a 3-year journey, but really COVID was the thing that tipped me over the edge. So throughout my life, and anyone that goes to my website will be able to see my story. It's been filled with a lot of challenges. It's been a total roller coaster from, having to fend for myself when I was 15, being married, divorced under 30, plus a whole bunch of other things. But through all of that, what I have always done is I have always found my North Star, and I've always worked towards that. So I developed a reputation throughout my friends and colleagues over the years, and even bosses that I reported to, as the person that has always been able to figure it out. I say it's that I make magic out of messes, because to me, every bit of chaos is necessary for you to be able to level up, to get to your next level. So between my, whatever happened 3 years ago in my life, plus COVID, it just came as a realization that everything that I have done, going from someone with no family, no formal education, to actually, getting educated, going to, one of the best business schools, and also having the VP title and running projects at national levels. To me, I realized, well, if someone like me, who literally had no prospects in life, can do all of these things, anyone can do it. And then the more I thought about what I did, the more I realized that it was a formula. It's a specific set of actions and steps. And I talk about that in my workshop as my 5 pillars. So that's a long way of answering your question, but I would say, 3 years, and COVID kind of put it over the edge.
Interesting. I like how you point out how COVID was kind of a kicking off point, because for me personally, and then a lot of other professionals I've spoken with, it's a challenge. It's not something we ever expected. We had to adapt to it. So I find that interesting for you. You say it was kind of a kicking off point for you. So how is COVID a kicking off point for you?
It was a kicking off point for me because there were a lot of people that were coming to me wondering what they should do with their life. So I had multiple friends who their hours were reduced. I had a couple of friends that were furloughed. One person was terminated. And they all were sort of left in this panic because it was a very abrupt jolt, right? It was a shock. No one saw it coming. And so in those moments, I think this whole thing of fight or flight really does kick in. And I think that my brain has been shaped differently because of having to have adult responsibilities from such a young age, that I was not allowed to freeze. I literally had to make a choice. So I have been, trained over the years that whenever something like this happens, that I must find a way out. I must reinvent myself. I must figure out something for a positive outcome. And so this is how I saw COVID. It was a way for me to help people to reinvent themselves, because that's what's going to make people successful. I don't even want to say in a post-COVID world, because that would assume that we have a vaccine and everyone has the vaccine. But the truth is that in a COVID world, you still need to do your job. You still need to maintain your friendships and have your families. And if you're a business owner like myself and like you, Kyle, you still need to take care of your customers. How are you going to do that in this world? Well, you certainly can't do it by throwing your hands in the air and going, oh my God, this thing is here and I'm just going to stop. Maybe you could do that for a little bit, but you can't do that forever. So to me, COVID has forced me to innovate. And this is how I saw COVID. It was a chance to innovate myself in another way, provide another value to the world. And this is my favorite because I get to do something that is very near and dear to my heart, help people. And then also, and grow my business from it.
Mm-hmm. So Savi, you had mentioned you want to help people to innovate, and that's, COVID was the kicking off point. So is your workshop a product of COVID, or were you already kind of building that before COVID hit?
No, it's a product of COVID. It's a product of COVID. Yeah. So I basically decided that I was going to learn how to actually design a workshop. How do you deliver a mastermind or a workshop? What are the formulas? What do people expect? And so I spent my time researching it. But for me, it just didn't seem like added time because I immediately saw the value and I focused on the value. And I think that there are a lot of people who are looking for, who do they want to be now, or who have they always wanted to be? So another thing about COVID, and I've written a couple of articles about it, but COVID has highlighted things that we really like in our lives and things that we don't like. What do I mean by that? So if you had to, get dressed every day and maybe commute 45 minutes to an hour and then go into an office and do that 5 days a week, there's enough stuff built into there where you can actually ignore the things that are kind of painful, right? So maybe you don't really like your job, or maybe you don't really like the commute, or maybe you don't even like where you live, or something's not right in your relationship. Whatever those things are that have been kind of poking at you in the side, you've been able to kind of ignore it. But with COVID, you can't go anywhere.
No.
Right?
You're stuck. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
You're literally stuck. And so it is I think it's just a forcing function of how people need to innovate. And again, I think people are looking for ways they now know that they can't escape it. They have to change. And for those who are wanting to change and wanting to get to that next level, peel the onion, you level up in life, however you want to talk about it, this is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, I have a some teaching experience. I was a teacher for a while. My wife's a teacher. My mom's a teacher. So when you talk workshop, I automatically switch to teacher mode.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious for you, Savi, when you were building your workshop, were you thinking, well, I've got to talk to the different learning styles, or I've got to present it in a way that's engaging? I mean, just, I guess, walk me through how you built your workshop and what it was like for you. Was it entirely new for you, or was it kind of like, oh, I've done this before?
Well, I mean, in my career, so I've been, 11 plus years in corporate America, many of those years as an executive and leading teams globally. So having to understand how to communicate with people in different countries with different cultures, but also giving a ton of presentations. So I really honed my skills. I do use a lot of pictures. I want to say that because you can never really go wrong with pictures.
Sure.
But one of the things that I've done in my life, and I think the reason why I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to have so many cool working experiences is because I am okay to go and do things and not have it perfect the first time, or even the third time or the fifth time or the 10th time. Like, I have developed this muscle of being completely okay with, failing, and completely, and I don't even really call it failing. I call it A/B testing.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or was it stumbling forward? I think you pointed that out too.
Exactly.
Stumble forward.
Yeah, exactly. Stumbling forward. That's basically how I've been able to progress through life. So the truth is that no, I haven't been able to research every single teaching style simply because, I never really set out to be a teacher, but I know that I will iterate and I will improve based on the feedback that I get from the women that I talk to. And to me, that's the ultimate, because I am having the women who really want to be a part of the family that I'm creating, the community that I'm creating, tell me how it is that they would like to consume the information. And to me, that's the ultimate feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then from there, you'll just, keep editing and adapting.
Yeah, keep editing and adapting. I don't believe this kind of work is ever finished. And I'm sure that as I do this kind of work, I will learn even more about myself, and I will add more to the content, or I'll do something differently. And with technology, who knows how the delivery changes. So I actually think this is a super cool time. Not only do I get to share all of the my stumbling forward experiences and my successes, but I get to do it in a whole, using technology in ways that I've never used it. Earlier when you said you talked about my podcast, it's like I had to learn how to podcast. I had no idea how to podcast. I think it took me, I don't know, maybe like a few days of actually being able to absorb in my brain what an RSS feed was. Or even just figuring it out, but I did it. So this is very much of, my personality. I've always been hands-on from when I was a kid, and I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I still don't understand what an RSS feed is. Somebody just said you need to do that. And so I'm going to be ignorant about that. I know it's something I need to do. I'll push that button and that's it. I'm not going to think about it. So
yeah. The way I think about it, it's like your social security number for your podcast. So Yeah. So I don't really, you can't have multiple RSS feeds for the same podcast. And I don't really think that you can actually change your RSS feed. So yeah, I'm sure there's someone who's listening to this podcast who will totally correct me, but that's my understanding of it. Because when I signed up, I remember this thing. It was like, you can't change this. Really, make up your mind.
Yeah, definitely. And like, there was a sequence that when I was setting it up, it said, okay, here's how you get your RSS feed, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I did that. And then it was done. I'm like, moving on. So now that you mentioned, it's kind of the social security number for your podcast, I'm like, so now I'm going to start thinking about it. So, but going back to your story, you said you had, like a North Star for you. Has the North Star been the same throughout the whole experience up to now, or has it changed?
That's such a great question. Well, I don't think you can ever have the same North Star. And the reason I think that your North Star always changes is because you change as a person, right? So when I was 15, my North Star was like, gosh, I just hope one day that I can make enough money to get my own place and, make enough money so that I can actually like put gas in my car and buy my favorite wings. I think it was Miami subs at that time when I lived in Miami. So that to me was a North Star back then. And as soon as I crossed that, then I wanted to achieve a bigger goal and then a bigger goal and then a bigger goal. And then it was, I wanted to get educated. And then, I fell in love and un in love, married and divorced under 30. And when I was married, I had a different North Star. So I don't think you can ever have one North Star in your life, because the definition of life and the definition of humanity is that we all go through cycles in our life. So you can't possibly always have the same thing guiding you. And now it's a different thing. Now I'm on a mission, and I'm so excited to make it the rest of my life's work, because that's just where I'm at right now, to help empower 1 million women to do well in their lives and their careers. If you asked me 5 years ago what my North Star was, it certainly wasn't that. 5 years ago, it was, I wanted to keep traveling across the world and experience different foods and cultures. And I'm not saying that's not my North Star today. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that it's not important today. It's just not my North Star.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to travel and eat different food and experience new cultures too. But yeah, it's not exactly my North Star, but it is something I'm working towards, which is important. So then, your North Star, realizing what it is you were working towards, where you wanted to go. How did that help? When you came up against those challenges and those obstacles, did it kind of give you resiliency and grit?
Well, I think the grit part is, again, not to overuse my own term, stumbling through life, but it's really being able to try something and completely, fall on the ground and get your knees cut up and say, okay, that's totally fine. I'm just going to make sure that I do something different to get to the goal. So I think it was because the thing that I was trying to achieve had more meaning for me, I developed resiliency. Like, resiliency became a part of the package deal because what I was trying to achieve had a higher meaning for me. And this is actually something that I talk about in my workshop, where, we try to get down to the main whys as to why someone wants to improve in their career. So, I'm teaching people how to get put on those super high level projects that, C-level executives love, or how to get promoted. But when you ask them why, if they give you an answer of like, oh, because, I want to make more money, or I want to do this or that, well, that's actually not really a why. It's like, why do you want to make more money? Well, I really want to take care of my family, or, well, I want to help up, my parents, not that well, that healthy. Or why do you want to make more money? Well, my parents were actually incredibly poor growing up, and I don't want to be that poor. So that's what I'm talking about as the deeper thing of why I was going after whatever I was going after. And so resiliency and grit just came along for the ride.
Yeah, cool. So kind of like a byproduct of everything that was happening.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say that. I like that. So then, as you're developing, this resiliency and grit and moving towards this, your North Star, and you're, of course, things aren't easy. It's rough. Were there thought leaders, or were there books, or was there, some sort of, source of inspiration for you? And what was it?
Yes. So the answer to both of those questions, or the two-part question, is yes. Yes to both.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done a couple of things. So I am an only child. I have siblings that we cross paths in our lives, but for the most part, I've always been a loner. And so because of that, and I'm also an introvert by nature. I
Mm-hmm. Me
also
too.
have, you are too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my inner world is very rich. Like I'm very comfortable being alone. And as a result of my inner world, like my mind just being very like voraciously hungry for knowledge, I read a lot. I've
Mm-hmm.
probably read like several hundred books, I think, in the last 10 years. Um, I've also been incredibly honest with myself to know my shortcomings and either just like accepted them as best as I can, because I'm not perfect. I can't tell you I'm happy with everything. Or if I wanted to be better at something, I sought out an expert who could get me there faster, because I'm all about speed, right? So if I wanted to, like, I'm not doing perfect communication right now, but in the past, I was not a very good communicator. And in terms of being able to be very clear, very quickly and succinct. So what did I do? I went and I took an executive speaking course, but I took the hardest course possible. It was executive speaking with hostile audiences, which is actually super hard.
Wow.
So yeah, and so you go through these so I went from 0 to 100, but that's my personality. So the first thing I did was I sought out experts. The second thing was I read a lot. The third thing was I found people that I emulated. So if someone had the job that I wanted, they worked at the company I wanted, they lived the life I wanted, I found that person and I literally shadowed them in everything that they did. Because I've tried to embody that as much as possible to figure out how to get there. The other thing is that I became an expert at certain things. So in the career arena, becoming an expert at something gives you credibility. And when you get credibility, senior leadership or even just other colleagues really want to work with you. So as a result of doing what I did very well, which is building relationships, upselling accounts, just being a good employee in the community, I was able to get mentors that were at the C level or very high executive level for the larger firms that I worked for. And I got them to be my mentor to help to groom me. So this is another way that I did that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And you had mentioned speaking with hostile crowds. I guess, was there a light version or an easy version, speaking but to really friendly people?
Well, the friendly version was just taking a speaking course, right? It was
Oh,
just,
okay.
yeah, the friendly version was just, get better at public speaking. So I think this fact has been thrown around a lot that people fear public speaking more than death. Something really insane. So it wasn't enough for me to just get over the fear of public speaking. I wanted to do, the exponentially hard version of not only do you have to get good at public speaking, but then you have to get heckled in the audience and people cut you off and they say really mean things. And it's really about how do you hold your composure and stay on track with what you're trying to say and help to calm down that person that is going after you in a very friendly and polite way in front of a ton of people. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's kind of, so I watch a ton of movies, so this is a Matrix analogy. So in the
There you
Matrix,
go.
when yeah so in the Matrix, when Keanu Reeves needs to learn how to do this crazy fighting, and they just insert a program into him. So that's
Mm-hmm.
basically what I did to myself. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna throw myself into the Matrix, except there was no program. I literally had to learn it the hard way. But again, this is my personality. I don't recommend it for most people.
True. Yeah. And yeah, I understand how public speaking can be scary. I was nervous for a while to do it, but even though I'm an introvert, it doesn't really scare me. I feel I'm just trying to have a conversation with a larger group of people. And also, like I mentioned, I was a teacher for a while, didn't always have the best classes. And I've spoken with hostile groups, and they're teenagers.
Yeah, they're probably the most hostile group.
Yes, but I didn't have your training, so I was probably really, really bad at it. But in my mind, I'm like, I've gone through high school and tried to teach high schoolers who hated me, like literally. One, they kept saying, "I hate you." I'm like, okay. Eventually, it just kind of rolls off your back. So I felt that was my training. So now any sort of public speaking I do, it's like it can't be worse than that. It can't be worse than talking to a bunch of high schoolers who hate you.
I actually think that you are definitely a black belt and I am not, because there were no high schoolers heckling me. There were just other people who wanted to get good at it, and they were still being politically correct and very nice. Nobody told me they hated me.
Really? So they were like the mean nice or the nice mean?
They were yeah, exactly. I mean, they were going after me in terms of like, they would keep interrupting me, or they would say like, well, that's not right. And that's not correct. Check your facts. Where's your data? You don't know what you're talking about. And they would go at that speed, but no one was like, we hate you. You suck. Get out of here.
Maybe you should have done that. That would have been like, legendary level plus.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now I need to go find a high school class to level up.
Yeah, substitute teaching. If you just, a substitute teacher, you walk in there that first, or, the first period, these students are acclimated to the teacher. You're the new person. They don't know you. Some of them just won't trust you automatically on that fact alone. Mm-hmm. And, some see it as, well, I'm going to get a free pass. This sub doesn't know the rules of the classroom or the unspoken rules. So I'm going to tell them, hey, I get to go to the bathroom whenever I want. And, they're going to start pulling that stuff on you. And if you're a long-term sub in a class, while the teacher's out, for medical reasons or maternity, then you're with them for a long time, and you're starting from scratch in the middle of it, and it's terrible. And some of them will just try to tear you a new one. It depends on the school. Some schools have great kids. Schools I was at were obviously not great. They weren't terrible. They just, I was always getting the bad students. Anyway, so I guess that's where you need to go. Is just ask a teacher, can I sub for you one day, and give me your worst students, and I'll try and see if I can get through this speech there.
All right. Well, the next time I want to torture myself, that'll be first thing on my list.
Definitely. Would you like to be a guest on the Career Challenges podcast? Go to careerchallengespodcast.com to find out how. While you're there, check out other episodes and download them through Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. The Career Challenges podcast is hosted by me, Kyle Weckerly. I'm a certified professional ghostwriter who works with business thought leaders and industry experts to write polished manuscripts, assess their publishing options, and create book marketing plans. I've worked with consultants, high-ticket salespeople, coaches, speakers, C-level executives, and business owners. My authors have worked for USAA, Vistage, Booz Allen Hamilton, Austin Technology Council, and Twitch. My authors know that writing a book will help them change the world. They know that the story they tell will create that change. So they want to write a book to serve as a platform for their marketing endeavors. They know a published book will help them secure more speaking gigs, market their expertise, promote a product or service, and more. So reach out to Kyle Weckerly at weckerlywriter.com to start your publishing journey. Maybe you're not ready to start that journey just yet, but you do know that you want to write a book. So where to begin? Well, if you're ready, go to weckerlywriter.com to download 101 questions to ask before writing your book. This will help you get started and will offer guidance on the next steps to turn your ideas, experience, and actionable knowledge into a completed manuscript. Just visit weckerlywriter.com to get your free copy today. That's weckerlywriter.com. weckerlywriter.com. And now, back to the Career Challenges podcast. So then, with your helping people through your workshops, have you launched it yet, or is it still, I guess, in the building phase?
It's still in the building phase, so it's more than 50% done. I'm very fortunate to be able to be working with some folks that have delivered this type of workshop, similar material for 40 plus years. Yeah, so I definitely have good mentorship and good feedback in terms of what I'm doing. But the truth is, like, I've been doing this for most of my life. My friends and my colleagues, they've always come to me to ask, like, hey, I have this situation at work, how do I resolve it? Or, hey, I really want to get put on this project, but it's on a completely different team. It's not even a team I really interact with, but I'm super interested in this work, but I'm not sure if I want to apply for a job on that team. But I think I want to test it out. Like, how do you think I should navigate that? And that's really an art, because there you have to figure out, well, number one, you have to make sure your direct manager is okay with it, and that you don't really want to scare them, right, in terms of you like leaving their team. So it's an art to managing not only your current work for your role, but also managing the human factors that are surrounded around that ask. And then what happens if you do actually want to leave and switch teams? Then how do you manage that without without really either, hurting your manager's feelings or putting a hole in the team and giving other people other work to do? There's a whole technique for it. So I've just decided that this is something that I love to do anyway. Why don't I help people do this on a regular basis, full time?
Definitely. So I guess switching gears a little bit, you also have your own podcast, the Dream Big and Live Free podcast. So then, where did the idea come for that? Was it similar to the workshop?
Yeah, so the idea that came for that was actually pretty similar to the workshop, and actually it definitely, the podcast also was born, kind of born out of this COVID time, and for the same reason. There are just so many people, and even on social media, the news. I actually don't really watch the news that much because I find it to be super depressing. But
Me too.
there are just so many people that felt really downhearted, and they just felt that this was the worst thing possible that could ever happen to them, and they almost were behaving like their life had ended. And I just knew that myself, a lot of other people who have been very successful, they started and have gone through so many rough times. Yeah, I don't know anybody that's ever been through a pandemic before. This is definitely a first one for me, but it's just a different way of looking at a different challenge. And so I wanted to bring stories of people who were very successful, but came from humble beginnings. So for example, I had someone that was a former NFL player on there, and he talks about how the fact that when he was a kid, he was diagnosed with 4 to 5 learning disabilities, and the teachers basically told him, hey, you should just sign up for the military because it's over for you, kid. And he ended up playing for the Indianapolis Colts. And the other executives that I've interviewed, they work at top technology firms, and a lot of them have very interesting beginnings, and a lot of people from very poor backgrounds, but they've found their North Star at every version of themselves in their life, and found the North Star with every kind of challenge. And so I wanted to bring these stories to inspire people, so that if someone was, a waiter or waitress and they wanted to get in tech, well, I have a woman on there. Her name is Susan Rice. I admire her so much. she started her career as a waitress, and then she became the head of UX research and design for Toast, a $5 billion tech firm. She never went to college in the traditional way either. Yet still, when we think of people that work at top tech firms, we think, oh, that person's like super duper smart. They have degrees from, all the like top schools. Like there's this profile that people give to people who work at these companies, but yet still the person who headed this started her career as waitressing, and waitressing is not bad. I'm just saying that it's totally possible. The whole point of it is that it is totally possible. You can have whatever you want. You just have to find your North Star, forget about the how. If someone ever told me that I would be leading initiatives at the national level one day, considering where I started and how I started, I would have taken the bet against myself. Like things were so, I really wouldn't have. I would have never believed them, because for me, things were so dire. And I feel like I'm living proof of that. And I believe that by having walked the talk my entire life, I might be one of the best people on the planet to teach other women how to level up in their career, because I have literally been through it all. And when women talk about being surrounded by, male dominated career sectors, I've worked in them all. And when you talk about not being able to, quote unquote, get a seat at the table, well, I've been able to do that as well. And most often I'm the youngest woman and also a woman of color. And how I was able to do it are the tips and techniques I teach in my workshop. But if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Very true. So then with your podcast, let's focus there. Mm-hmm. And the guests that you're bringing on, mm-hmm. I'm always curious when I talk, podcast host to podcast host, mm-hmm. What was one of your favorite stories of a guest you had on the show?
One of my favorite stories of a guest that I had on the show, well, that would be my last guest. So her name is Dr. Hope Clark, and I was introduced to her by another incredible female tech executive. And the whole intro I got was like, oh, you'll really love Hope. She's such an inspiration, and she's been inspiring to me. And when I met her on Zoom, and we were talking as she was telling me her story, so this woman has 4 degrees. She works in the president's office at a higher ed institution, and she's responsible for policies, run things at the state, local, national, global level. And she is also 80% deaf.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. When she was born, she was born in the 70s, which she discloses, so I'm not giving anything away. Born in the 70s. And she talks about the fact that she was born prematurely, and they didn't actually think she was going to live. And so back then, when there was no cool, machines like there are today to help premature babies, it was literally nuns watching over her, that whenever she would stop breathing, they would tap her on the back so she would start breathing again. And it wasn't until she was 3 that her mom found out that she was deaf when she tried to enroll her in a school. So, and on top of that, her mom was a single mom, teenage pregnancy in the 70s, no education. I mean, if you think about all of the circumstances for this woman back then, and all the disadvantages that she had, if someone wrote that on paper, and I even said this on my podcast, that I don't know if I could have handled that. I really just don't know. And she was living in a rural area where the school district wasn't set up for someone with her disabilities. But her mom actually found out some kind of ruling and actually fought the school board. And then they actually, this woman's incredible. And then they actually set something up for Hope to be able to learn. So, I literally wrote in my podcast description that people need to have the Kleenex handy. It's episode 8 for anyone that's listening. I mean, just an incredible story of overcoming. And that was definitely my favorite. I mean, they're all great stories, But this is the first time I think in my life that I met someone with a disability that really just took their life to such heights. And when I asked her how she did it, she said, well, I just used the tools that I had. I didn't focus on the fact that I've lost 80% of my hearing. I just focused on the fact that, well, so what? I can't hear 80%. I can read. I know, it's crazy. She's like, I can read lips. I can do sign language. I can write. And she just started naming off all of these things. And she spends most of her times in meetings. Mm-hmm. So I could see like that happening to someone today and how easy that was. But she went through all of this in like the 80s and the 90s, and her mom like couldn't even afford to buy 2 hearing aids. So she only wore 1 hearing aid. I mean, wow. It's just incredible, just incredible. So this is how I want to inspire the world. Like, for anybody that's listening, like, no matter what is going on in your life, including COVID, you can completely change your situation. You can completely innovate yourself and have the life that you want. You just need to be willing to stumble forward even when you're scared, and just take action and do it. And so this is what I'm going to teach women in the workshop.
Definitely. That's an amazing story. Now I'm going to go listen to that podcast episode after this. But then going back, because in your bio you had mentioned, lots of rough times, stumbling forward, like we had mentioned multiple times. So I guess if you could pick, one lesson that you learned the hard way in your story, what's one lesson you learned the hard way that you would want to share here?
Wow. Only one.
Only one. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I learned everything the hard way, but no, I would say that this is definitely more of a personal thing. Like this isn't necessarily related to career, but so I got married when I was 21, divorced when I was 25. And that was a very painful thing for me because, without going into all the details, I thought I married my soulmate, figured out it wasn't, and then I decided to leave. And the reason why is the following. These are the lessons learned out of that experience. So number one, regardless whether you're a man or a woman, this applies. Number one, it is always really important to fulfill yourself with things that interest you and things that are very important to you. Because one of the mistakes that I made was I ended up living someone else's life, in the sense of they, wanted me to do, X, Y, and Z. And instead of saying, no, I really want to do these other things, like having my own identity, I kind of forego that, whether it was unconscious or not, but that's what happened. So having the things that really fulfill you are very important, because I lost it and I had to innovate myself. The second thing is that it's always really important to maintain your friendships, maintain your community. So it doesn't have to be family members. It could be friends. It could be friends from, if you like to play sports, make sure you, or read books, whatever it is that you love. It could be, I don't know, making wood carvings. I don't care. Like, I like pencils. I mean, whatever it is, it's always important to have a community around the things that you like, because these are people that connect with you on a very special level. And the third thing is always improve yourself. So become naturally curious about something. So for me, I am curious about literally anything. I mean, if someone has a very interesting conversation around butterflies, I will actually go look up butterflies and will probably read about it for 3 days. This is my personality. I realize that that's probably not what most people would do, but whatever it is, continuously make sure that you are finding another level within yourself, because it will make you happier. You will definitely make for an interesting dinner guest, but you will also continue to evolve and grow in positive ways. Because even if you're interested in, wood carving or pottery or painting or whatever it is, it will actually take you on a completely other road, a different road that you may not have decided to venture down yourself. So these are my 3 things.
Awesome. I wasn't expecting this, but you had mentioned that you're really into pencils. So then I'm curious, what is it about pencils that I guess is, just sparks your interest?
Yeah. So there's actually one brand of pencils that I use. One brand. So quick side story. My mom's second business, she owned a printing company. And so this is when, you needed printing companies. So this is a long time ago. And she would make beautiful stationery, beautiful envelopes, beautiful business cards. So from a very young age, I got very fascinated with details. So I am a very detail-oriented person. I really am a very texture-oriented person. So the thing that's fascinating to me about pencils is, number one, for some reason, the way that my brain works is that pencil and paper, when I do that, I am the most creative. I am the most connected. When I use my keyboard, it's like I'm not really there. So when I want to go into something deep, it's pencil and paper. I can actually feel the quality of lead in pencil and feel how it writes. I think this is because from a very young age, I was, in the printing shop and feeling the quality of paper and thickness of paper. Like, I can touch a piece of paper and know if it's like, not good quality or very good quality, even if I don't know all the technical things. So very minor things matter to me. I don't know if that's OCD or not, but whatever.
Well, I think you mentioned you're doing it from a young age. So I think it probably imprinted just from the way you're describing it. Because there were things like when I was a kid, like I loved peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
And so like I learned like what was the right ratio of jam to peanut butter on the bread, and how to put it on the bread and then put the 2 slices together. And, even now at 35, I'm like, this is the way it has to be done in order for it to really taste good, to get the fullness of the flavor out of this PB&J. But yeah, continue with your pencil explanation.
Yeah, no, you get it with the PB&J thing. So yeah, it's there's just something there are multiple sensations that are built into it. And also definitely an OCD thing. I really hate, when you're writing in pen and you make a mistake and you need to scratch things out. Oh my gosh, that drives me crazy. So with pencil, I can erase it. But that's just really it. It's more about the connection. It's about the creativity. It's about the way the instrument writes, plus also growing up, the type of schools that I went to, you actually had to learn. So until you were about 10 years old, you used pencils because you were learning how to write properly. This is when cursive writing was still an art. I think you call it cursive here, right, in the States.
Yeah, it's cursive.
Yeah. So this is when cursive was considered, I don't know if it's an art form, but good penmanship was also a part of your grading at school. So, one of the things that I'm still traumatized by today is looping my T's and not my L's. I had so much red ink all over my paper because it took me forever to get that. But so after 10, you went into a different grade. And if you got to use pen, then you were a real rock star, because it meant that your cursive was, really awesome and you did everything perfect. And it took me a really long time to get there. I also repeated a grade back then. And so I think I'm also just still really angry from the fact that I never got promoted to pens.
I understand.
In some very deep layer. So now I use pencils, or I still use pencils, and I write in block. I don't even do cursive.
Yeah. Well, actually, like my penmanship was terrible. If there was a penmanship grade in school, I probably didn't get a good one. But it wasn't until after college, actually, that I thought I should change the way I sign my name, because I would just write my name really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt if I did cursive, that would make me look more professional.
Oh.
So I actually sat down and made myself write my name in cursive about 200 or 500 times.
Wow.
To where it's now a natural thing. And I had to make myself do that at, I think like I was 25 at the time.
That's hard.
Yeah, but I was doing it with pencil though. So yeah, I get it. So you had mentioned you have like a brand that you love, and I'm always a fan of mechanical pencils. So I've got a Bic 0.7 millimeter number 2 lead here, and that's like my standard. But also like I can use them up and toss them to the side because it's a pain to reload them. But I have like a Zebra. Yeah, it's Zebra brand. It was like the high end mechanical pencil you could get at Staples. And so that's what I got there. But a Zebra brand, 0.5 millimeter number 2 lead mechanical pencil that I'm like, I will only use this when I really want to write something important. And so it's in a special place so that it doesn't get mixed in with the, these disposable Bic ones. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, that's for the really important stuff I want to write in pencil.
Yeah. So my brand is Blackwing. It's Blackwing, and it is a true lead pencil. That means I also have a sharpener. That means I also have a pencil case. Yes, I am still nerdy. 100%.
Actually, I have to say respect there, because you're like, you've got the tools, so you're going to take care of the tools. Yeah. And that just shows the level of dedication there. It's like, this pencil will be taken care of.
You know what? I'm having such a good time on this podcast because I really swear I don't think I've had the chance to really show my appreciation of pencils like this to another person before, other than wherever I'm buying it from. I will say though, I have a journal that I keep next to my bed, and I do use mechanical because I am too lazy to do the sharpening when I'm in bed, and I don't want the stuff to get all over my sheets, details.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, there's still standards, you're not always going to use it every time.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it. I understand. There's certain things that it's like, I'm going to be very specific about this. Everything else I can like not care about, or the quality will be off. And so I'll be like, that's okay. I'm not going to get bent out of shape. But when it comes to my PB&Js, there's a way to do it.
Exactly.
And I don't think my wife has ever made me one, because she probably will think I'm just going to critique her the whole time. So on the downside of that, I have to keep making my own sandwiches. So.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is that you probably would. So I think for the sake of, her sanity, you should keep making your own sandwiches.
True. So we're just about out of time here, but Savi, what is next for you? You had mentioned your workshop. When is that going to be coming out?
Yep. So that is going to be coming out at the end of September. And anyone who is interested in the workshop, just like Kyle said, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And my name is SAV like Victor, B like boy, ARROW, E like Edward, S like Sam. And you can learn more.
Awesome. Definitely. And you mentioned LinkedIn and Instagram were great places to connect with you. Is there anywhere else? Do you have your own website?
I do have my own website, but the truth is that it's better to find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. The website is under construction. It's up, but it's under construction. But LinkedIn and Instagram is the place.
All right, definitely. And then, of course, your podcast. It's on all major podcast platforms.
Yes, Kyle. Thank you for that reminder. Yep. So please subscribe to Dream Big and Live Free. It is everywhere that podcasts are available. So Spotify, iTunes, Google, and wherever you get your podcasts from.
Definitely. And I guess, when do new episodes drop? Is it a weekly thing that you're doing here?
Yep. A fresh episode is dropped every Monday. So you guys can check that out.
Definitely. All right. Well, Savi, thank you so much for being on the Career Challenges podcast with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kyle. I had a great time.
Thank you for listening to the Career Challenges Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and like the Career Challenges Podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Visit careerchallengespodcast.com for more information. And if you really like me, then you'll write a review. And don't forget to pick up your free copy of 101 Questions to Ask before writing your book by visiting weckerlywriter.com. That's WECKERLYWRITER.com.